For everybody that is joining us tonight and everybody that'll be joining us in the future, thank you so much. They saved us for last for a reason. We are all energy, all women who work in the podcasting industry, all just balls of knowledge, and we are the sassiest. So we are going to end this session with so much energy and love and light. And I do have to say, for those who do not know who Kathleen Turner is, she is an actress with a deep, deep voice, and I am mimicking her right now because I am having an awful asthma flare-up. So I apologize if I cough continuously throughout this, but I would not allow my asthma to prevent me from being here and meeting with my favorite ladies in the podcasting industry. So for those who do not know who I am, my name is Bethany Hawkins, and I am CEO and founder of Crackers and Soup, which is a podcast production company. We do everything from intros and outros all the way to post-production and launches and all of the damn things. And I am going to let my other panelists introduce themselves and what they do and how they work in the podcasting industry. So Sasha, hit it. Tell the people who you are.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sasha Huff, and I am a 10-year radio veteran turned podcast producer. And I have my own little company. I'm just like a little solopreneur doing my thing and helping people launch and maintain their shows. So I do a lot of the similar work to Crackers and Soup. And I'm just like so thankful to be a part of this community and to be a part of this awesome panel today. So thanks for having me.
So excited to have you. Jordan Duffy, tell us your business.
Well, thank you, Bethany. I'm so excited to be here today. So my name is Jordan Duffy. I am actually the very first female audio engineer at the Earwolf Stitcher company that was just recently purchased by SiriusXM with Pandora. Outside of podcasting, I'm also a musician. I'm currently in production of my album, and that's all I can think of.
That's enough. Nikita Burks Hale, thank you for joining us, and tell us your business.
Yes, thank you for having me. I am Nikita Burks Hale. I am the founder and I say head creative of Journey Girl Magic Productions. We are a podcast company, post-production company that specializes in amplifying and supporting voices of color, specifically women podcasters. And so I've been around for a couple of years. When I'm not running that business, I have a 4-year-old, almost 4-year-old, and a 4-month-old. Hence why I just slid up on here right at the beginning. So that is who I am, both in and off of the microphone.
Caroline Galva is my business. I am all up in her business and she is all up in mine. Caroline, tell the people who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Caroline Galva. I am a graphic designer and digital marketer for Crackers and Soup. Basically do all things creative, make things look beautiful. It's my forte. I've been doing it for 10 plus years and I love it. And especially now getting to add that spin of creativity into the podcasting world. I'm also the co-host of Chatting Over Chowder, which is the podcast from Crackers and Soup.
So when Anu and I were talking about what should we discuss in regards to the State of the Women panel for this summit, I knew that I wanted to talk to women who were absolutely like my loves in the podcasting industry. And these women were actually hand selected by me because they are absolutely some of my favorites. And I love that we all concentrate on not only podcasting, but sisterhood and community. So Caroline, tell me what sisterhood and community mean to you.
Sisterhood and community to me definitely is just the ability to be able to connect with people that you can relate and be there for, people who understand the things that you're going through, which is, especially a lot of women in the trying to be entrepreneurs and in this industry in general. And also women or sisterhood and community to me is being able to help each other in the ways that we're all best suited in. So the thing that you're best at that I might lack, you're able to give me advice or just help me out in that, and likewise. And so that's what I've really loved about this community, and that's what it really means to me.
Nikita, same question.
So sisterhood for me is that community of folks, women identified usually or not, depending on how you row, how you flow. But it's those folks that you can go to when times get tough, when times get hard, when you are in it and you need to be out of it. You just need someone to understand. You need someone to cry, a shoulder to cry on, someone to cuss at because things are just everywhere, and other folks that just get it. Oftentimes, especially because in podcasting, and it gets smaller in podcast editing or post-production, it's not typically female friendly. There aren't a lot of women, so like we are privileged to have here, and we need more of us in creating that community so we all know that it's not a competition. I would say for all of us, we're not here to try to say, okay, well, hire me after this is done. No, it's really about supporting and being there for each other, because at the end of the day, we have each other's backs. So that's what it means to me.
Jordan, tell me a story about sisterhood and community.
Do you want a funny story or a sad story? I'm just kidding. Sisterhood and community. So I am part of my sister's podcast called the Powerful Ladies podcast. And the number one thing that it's really taught me is you don't know anyone's story until you ask. And you really don't know anyone's story until you ask for help. So sisterhood to me is just being there for your fellow ladies, or just like Nikita said, however you identify. And it's just this group and community that always has your back. So that's all I can think of.
Asha, sisterhood and community, what does that mean to you?
So, I mean, obviously, I agree with everything that's already been said. And I think for me, and what I found that has been so beautiful about being in the podcasting community is the genuine care that people seem to have for one another. And I don't know if I just lucked out or what it is, but sisterhood to me is really truly, caring about the success of your fellow women. Or again, I know we're all being, obviously, however you identify, we've all said it, so I feel silly saying it for the third time, but I also agree with that sentiment. But yeah, and community is really just coming together with a common goal or a common focus, where we can all help each other out, right? So coming together and just sharing knowledge and sharing expertise. And, there are times where that's a paid sharing, and there's times when that's just because you're in community with other people. And so that's kind of how I define it, and how I feel about it as well.
Of that, I mimic and mirror everything that each of you had said. And I also want to say that sisterhood and community for Cheryline and I, working as producers of particular podcasts, is so important to us because we fall into the category of, if we are not, excuse me, in love with your podcast, we probably won't work with you. And that is very intentional. Not only do we want to get your voice heard to as many people as we possibly can in the smoothest way and we can possibly create it, but we also very selfishly have to listen to your shit for 4 hours. So if your episode is whack or your topic isn't something that we resonate with, it's so hard for us because we extract your graphics, we extract your quotes, we extract your audiograms. It's hard for us to find those gems that listeners will find intriguing because we kind of are bored if we don't have those clients that fall in alignment with our vision and in our sisterhood and our community. And it also helps develop a better dynamic with our clientele because they know who we are and we know who they are. And we can offer them tips and suggestions in order for the betterment of their podcast, not only, but also for the betterment of their business. So sisterhood to me is not just us being able to bounce ideas off of each other, which without this community, I don't think I ever would have made it as far as I have in podcasting, because you all have been my ride or dies. I can't even tell you how many times I've slipped into Jordan's freaking DMs and be like, hey, I have an editing question. Nikita, I stalk incessantly. Sasha, I'm just going to show up on her doorstep one day and she's going to be horrified. Cheryline, I already do. So so when I say this isn't just a panel of like, hey, we see each other every 4 months and we only engage every 4 months. No, we truly depend on each other for ideas and for suggestions and working for great clients and for working for those difficult clients. So having said that, how did each of you get into podcasting? Jordan, why don't you take it?
I'll go first. So I originally got my degree in visual and performing arts. And after college, I was very confused on where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to do music, and my favorite spot in the whole world to be was in a recording studio. And so I went through my brain and I was like, how can I be there all the time? How can I be in a studio all the time? And so I found where I could get my audio engineering certificate to then get jobs so that I could actually work in a studio and I could also be making music on the side. And after my degree, I started working with actually my brother and his friends' podcast called Level Up Lore, where I was doing a lot of sound design and basically making it sound like a video game. And that was like my very first time working on a podcast. They were these like 30 to 40 minute once a week podcast. A lot of work, a lot of hours to make it sound like a video game. It's a lot of work. So from there, I ended up moving to California on a whim. And within 3 months after like calling places, being like, please hire me for these like studios to work in. And one company reached out to me, which was Earwolf, the comedy podcast network, and hired me. And I was like, great, this isn't a studio. Like, this is what I wanted to do. But I really didn't know like everything about podcasting. And I learned real fast, and I've been at Earwolf for almost 3 years now. So that's how I got into podcasting.
Lad, how are you suckered into get into podcasting?
I love that you use the word suckered. So I've always enjoyed listening to podcasts. And when I met Bethany, she went on and on about how much she enjoyed certain people's podcasts and how part of her dream was to start something to be a virtual assistant for podcasters. And that then quickly changed to her wanting to manage podcasts. And that's what she suckered me in. She really roped me in because as a graphic designer, you're like, oh, well, what does that really have to do with podcasting? But for me, what I loved is that when I heard these podcasts, I could truly see the visual aspects of it. And so I enjoyed so much of doing that creation and marketing aspect of podcasts. So I really, once we kind of talked about what was going to happen with the business, I enjoyed so much being able to tell someone's story of a podcast through their cover art. And so that's where I started to fall in love with that detail. And then being able to help them with their marketing and be able to tell snippets of their stories through audiograms, the visual aspects of them. So that's really how I started that. And then once we started chatting over Chowder, that was just like a whole other ball game. I fell in love with the idea of connecting with all these women, and they just amazed me. And we've talked about it in chatting over Chowder, but it almost felt like a therapy session in each episode, because whatever guests we had on, it was like the universe magically had them on there to like relate to something that I was going through in the moment. So I just the ability to connect with them and truly form almost like a friendship with every single one of the guests that we had was incredible for me. And it made me fall in love with podcasting and the opportunity that both as a host, having a guest on, and as well as our audience has to learn something and just find themselves now with a different connection that they never had before as well. And so I love that idea. And I was so thrilled to be able to present that to every single one of our clients' audiences.
Sasha, how did you get into podcasting?
I have a cat that's about to jump up. He wants in so bad. He's like, I'll tell you how I got into podcasting. I ran over my mom's microphone and yelled it in the middle of her audio. Sorry. So I got into podcasting. So like I mentioned in my intro, I was working in Los Angeles radio for 10 years, and I left the industry after a whole drama, which is, I told the story on my podcast, actually, much to many people's dismay. And I was doing a little bit of marketing at the time, digital marketing, social media management, things like that on my own. And one of my clients asked me, hey, you used to work in radio and I'm thinking of starting a podcast. Do you know how to do that? And I was like, quick search of like, what does it really mean to start a podcast? And what skills do you need to have in order to do that? And it turned out it was pretty much everything I had done in radio. So she was really my first client. And I loved this kind of the same things that Sherilyn was saying of like helping someone bring their voice to the stage in this way and helping them talk about the things they're really passionate about. And at the time, I don't think I understood what a skill it was to be able to edit audio and make something sound really good. Like I did, because I worked with people obviously who did it for a living. But going into kind of the entrepreneur space, I wasn't, it just didn't come to me at first. And then after a while, I started to promote that a little bit more. And then clients started to come in and I launched a Facebook group, and it just kind of was like this snowball effect of, finding my way into a radio-like space, but on my own terms, which was really, really exciting for me. And then having my own show, again, same as Sherilyn said, like it was a combination of being able to express myself and tell stories that I had kind of kept behind closed doors. And at the time, I was freshly out of this corporate job. So I was like, I'm going to tell everything that nobody said I could ever talk about. And I'm going to go for it because I don't care anymore. And then also connecting with guests and being able to meet people and share information that I felt was really important to talk about and, connect to so many different women. Again, like I really do mainly work with women. It's what I like doing, and it's where I feel I'm the most, helpful. And yeah, it just kind of spiraled from there. And now I work in podcasting and here I am.
Nikita, what's your podcasting journey? How'd you get here?
So I started out actually editing first. In undergrad, I was a dance performance and choreography major. That was my double degree in undergrad. And so having to cut and splice all of my music for my performances, and I was like, oh, I have to get this done. Didn't think about it for about almost 10 years. And then when I moved to another city in a state, I used to have to travel back and forth. So quick, had a 6-month-old then, and my wife and my son moved to 4 hours away. So I would drive there every Thursday, spend 3 days with them, and then drive back to where I was working every Sunday. So that's how I discovered podcasts, because I needed something for that nothing on the road. It was just a dirt road that whole way. And after about 3 months of doing that, I decided I wanted my own podcast for my birthday and a gift to myself. I felt like I had something to say, and only I could say it. So I launched, and right after I had so many women, specifically women of color, saying, I want to launch a podcast. I want to do this. I don't think my voice matters. I don't think anything will listen or anybody will listen. And it really got me into, because before then I only listened to 1 or 2 podcasts. So getting into this as I can help you launch, I needed to know what else was out there and how I could help these folks. And so I immersed myself in all these types of podcasts, all different kinds, genres and whatnot, and just fell in love and really highlighting the voice, really the complexities and just the diversity of voices. You can do true crime, you can do storytelling, you can do any type of podcast you want, and having that also be by women of color for me just blew my mind. And so that's how I got.
Thank you all for sharing your journey and your experience and how you got here. I actually have a corporate story. I was in corporate for 18 years in the criminal justice world. My degree is in criminal justice, which is clearly why I got into podcasting. It served me so well here. However, I was in there for 18 years, and the last 3 years that I was in corporate, I was miserable. And the only thing that got me through literally every day was listening to these podcasts that were so supportive and of like Black women and their journeys into entrepreneurship. And when I started listening to them, I had no idea that this was going to be where I was headed. I had no idea that this was going to be my trajectory. What I did know is that I was freaking miserable. And I have children and I have a husband, and I didn't have enough energy at the end of the day to interact with them. And that made me so sad. And I knew that if I was going to leave security, because when you work for a government agency, that's what the big pull is. It's security. It's a retirement if you're there for a set amount of time. It's health insurance. It's all of these things that you kind of need to survive, like, and pay the mortgage. So hashtag important stuff. And feed the kids because they really like to eat. Like, who knew? So I said to my husband, I'm going to start out and create a company, and I'm going to start out as a VA, but I'm going to eventually transition into podcasting. And he was like, babe, I don't know what podcasting is, but God bless. Like, you do you. And I had no podcasting friends. I had no podcasting people. I didn't know anybody. My friends, some of them, when we started chatting over Chowder, when Caroline and I started, they were like, how do you even listen to a podcast? And let's not get it twisted. We're not that old. So for them to be asking how you even listen to a podcast, it shows how podcasting is in its infancy. So when I say that sisterhood and community is literally the foundation of Crackers and Soup, it is how I came to be, because I found a group. I immersed myself in it. They were all like-minded people. They gave me my first start and opportunity to work on their podcast and let me write show notes, because I knew that I could switch up the written word, but I didn't realize that was a transferable skill that could absolutely be utilized in the podcasting industry. And that's why community is so important, because they can look at you, see what you do, and highlight and accentuate all of your goodness that inevitably will be transferred over to a podcast, because there are so many different moving parts of the podcast. And that's why I love that we have the panel that we have. Like, Jordan's concentration is on editing. Sasha's concentration is on editing and launching and has that radio experience. Nikita's concentration is actually like a whole podcast therapist. Like, I'm just going to need you to change your title to podcast therapist. And Cherylline's concentration is on the visual. There's so many different aspects to podcasting in which you can not only make your podcast better, but you can get paid, and get paid handsomely. So somebody asked in the audience, how long have we all known each other? So I have known
You knew people before.
So I just sent Jordan a link, and I was like, so I hear that you're pretty fly, B11 click on. And she was like, well, I have nothing to do at that time, so I'm down. So it truly feels like I have known these women since the beginning of time. Like, I feel like I came out of my mother's vagina and I was like, what up, Sasha?
Hi. Oh my God. Great to see you.
And like, we were in like the little baby ward, and we we're like,
You fun baby ward. Wow. I was in the corner cowering because I didn't know what was happening.
Jordan had her guitar and she was like, I hate it here. Nikita's like, I wish they would just shut up.
me all your feelings. Tell me about this joy. Tell me about this cowering. Let's talk about this. Let's get real. Authentic.
How was the transition from the womb to the outside?
That's really hard.
And Cheryline was like, I will draw all of this.
I've pictured this. I've captured it. I'll visually tell this story now.
Cast of In the Baby Ward comes out next week. I don't know if anyone knows this.
It would be so much flyer than Rugrats.
Move over, Rugrats. We're here now.
We got this. So I actually, out of all of these women, I've known Cheryline the longest. And we met in 2019.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
2019.
So Cheryline and I, we actually live in the same city. And we were part of the same networking. And when I was there, my first meeting, I was like, well, I'm the only minority. And then Cheryline, in true minority fashion, came all hella late. And I was like, oh, minorities unite. Let's run slowly to each other. And
Truly.
That's truly what happened. And I have handcuffed her to me ever since.
I've enjoyed that jail.
So, Cheryline, why don't you say how you know Jordan?
So Jordan's my best friend. Whether she thinks she's my best, I'm hers. That's a different story.
You're my best friend. I don't know if we've talked about this. We can talk about it now. You're my best friend.
Oh my God, finally. Thank you. So no, Jordan and I met in college at our choral group that we both had like gone through an excruciating audition process and had finally gotten in. And we just connected from like the beginning. So we've known each other. How long has that been? Like,
we have known each other since January of 2012.
2012.
Because we auditioned, so we sang together. But then I remember we both made it. We were sitting, and I looked over at you, and I was like, "Oh, I like her fashion." That's what I remember saying. And I was like, "I think I should be friends with her."
And you were the first person to talk to me.
Like, I love all of the superficial reasons why we all got up together. We're so
close.
Yes, we're women. We're above all of the superficial nonsense. And we're like, she's a minority. I like the way she dressed. I like her red lipstick. I like her hair.
And I believe they just asked, do we all live near each other? So currently not. When Jordan and I met, we were at school in Worcester, Mass. And then Jordan moved to California eventually. She moved a few different places, but eventually to California. I still live in Mass, and so does Bethany.
Nikita and Sasha and I know each other because we were actually part of this particular group. And at the beginning of that group, it was a small amount of people. And that group had the flyest woman who initially joined. And I swear to God, it was like all of those women became instant best friends. It was like in Step Brothers, where they're talking about like all of the whack nonsense that they like. And they were like, are we best friends? And I was like, yes, we're best friends. And Nikita has been my accountability partner for what, like 50 years now?
Equivalent to a year, but yes. April was a year that we kind of started connecting in nowhere. So yeah.
And I make it feel like 50 years. So a year being my accountability partner is like 7 years. So it's an equivalent of dog years. And Nikita still accepts my calls. So hashtag who's winning? Me.
We both are.
And then,
it's mutual. We're good.
And Nikita was one of the first few guests on Chatting Over Chowder. And that's when her and I knew about her because Bethany would not stop talking about her. And then finally, when we met, we were like, it feels like we already both know each other, because we've heard so much about each other. But like, hi, this is the first time we're meeting. And this was months ago. And like I said, honestly, and because the same goes with Sasha, is I met her was on Chatting Over Chowder. It feels like I've known these women forever, just because, again, Bethany, the people you draw to you are genuinely the people who you would only hang out with. Like, you don't, like, I don't see anyone that you know that you're like, oh, I wouldn't chill with that person. Like, you genuinely would. So, like, because of that, I feel like automatically it just forms a bond. Like, we were all like, so like it literally just felt like, hey, we'd all known each other forever at that point.
So I began stalking Sasha because of her rhetoric and her wit. And she truly would have, like, I know that I'm just incessantly wheezing right now. But when my lungs were at full capacity, she would truly, like, every engagement would just have me wheezing. And that was through messages. We hadn't even physically met until we interviewed you for Chatting Over Chowder. And that was it. Like, I was like, girl, you're my sister. If you need a kidney, you let me know. If you need, like,
I might need a kidney.
Fun
It's
fact.
weird. Yeah. Fun fact.
I have a cooler. I've already laid in the bathtub full of ice and cut it out and ready for.
So sweet of you. I know people that would pay a lot of money. So if it doesn't work out for me, we'll just send them right along. If you whatever, things happen. We have to side hustle. It might be with organ selling.
Really about
I don't know.
This is the community part. This is the community part.
Oh,
Sisterhood is sharing organs. I don't know if I mentioned, but if we're friends, you have to eventually offer an organ to me. Stay in my world.
Sasha seems to be losing them left and right in different states.
Yeah, I drop an organ wherever I go. I'm like, hey, Portland, keep it. Florida, what? You can have my kidney. I don't care. Anyway, sorry. Everybody should know my medical history on this. Hi, everyone. So when I was 5, I had my tonsils out. Actually, anyway.
There's just so many HIPAA violations happening right now. So many HIPAA law violations.
What can I say? Rebel.
And I met Jordan through Cheryline. So, and poor Jordan, she's never, like, been the same. I'm always talking to Jordan
today. Now I know where to sell organs.
I send Cheryline text messages and I'm like, Jordan's going to be ignoring me in about 5 minutes. So that's how we all came together. So Cheryline and I are part of Women of Color Podcasters. Nikita is as well. Sasha and Jordan are not women of color.
No, I am not. No. But I do love Danielle and, like, have collaborated with her and, like, love that community and, like, truly just, I think it's wonderful that that community exists and, all of it. Yeah.
Totally supported. As someone who also works with, like, the most diverse podcast at my network, we need more diversity, please.
And Sasha and Jordan are invited to, like, all the cookouts all the time. All the time. They're the coolest, most, I hate the word woke because that's just, but you guys are truly the epitome of inclusive. Before inclusive was, like, a common term. Like, it was just ingrained in you personally before it kind of became niche. And that's why I appreciate this panel so much, is because we make up so many diversities, LGBT community, different color Blacks, Dominican. like we are such a diverse panel, and we have so many different background experiences, but we all do amazing things in podcasting. Someone has a question. Nikita, do you have your own community?
I realized I wasn't on mute this entire time. I'm glad that I didn't, pass gas or anything, because that could really happen. But so Not yet. That is what's in the works over the summer, because what I've realized over these past few months is that that's really important to me. In working with women of color, the thing that's missing the most is this community. Now we have Women of Color podcasts, of course, and they are amazing, but one is not enough. It's not just one and done. And they shouldn't be the token. Danielle works her ass off, and she should have support there should be more communities, more for collaboration. So it's definitely in the works, because we need to all support each other.
So, Caroline, what is your favorite part of podcasting? I know that you mentioned the graphics, but is there anything else that you're drawn to in podcast?
Honestly, it's the knowledge. I think the tidbits of information that you get from either, even when you have those like solo podcasts, the information that person's expertise just gives you, or when they have a guest on and you're like, holy crap, I never thought of that way. And it changes, because I know for me, certain podcasts that I listen to really like helped me. Really, helped me change my mindset. It sometimes even gave me that like dose of reality that I needed, in order to sort of move on to another chapter or accept things in my life that I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready now to get to this next chapter. So honestly, it really is the knowledge I think that I've gained from almost every podcast that I've listened to.
Sasha, what is your favorite part of podcasts?
So I think it's kind of been like the core of what I've done like over the years, right? So I was a writer, I'm an artist, and I just think like telling stories and sharing with people is so important. And it really goes back to, again, like when I started my show and I'm like, I'm gonna talk about whatever I want to talk about, because I think so often we are censored in a lot of ways, whether it's coming from an outside source or within ourselves. Like Nikita had mentioned, a lot of her clients say, well, look, who's going to listen to me? Why does it matter? And it's like, these stories really matter. And the perspective that people can share really matters, whether it's business related or it's personal or a hobby. You know, it's kind of cliche that we often talk about how, you know, just being yourself and your unique filter that comes with all of your life experiences is what makes your show so unique. It's like, that's what I love about all of it is sharing those things and the unique information that's sent by everyone. And I see I need to close all tabs and refresh my screen. What? All of them? One of them? Okay, I'll be back.
There you are.
That's what I love.
No,
about
no,
it.
you're here. You're here now. So ironically,
okay,
as you were talking about being censored, you turned gray.
Oh, no way. Really? Oh, okay. Let's see.
No, you're back
this
now.
Is what happened.
Your beautiful face is there now.
Okay.
So you're good.
Wonderful. So what, did it cut off audio too, or you heard what I was saying?
Oh,
audio was there. Great.
Yes.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, that's it. Yeah. I just love the storytelling aspect of it. I think I get exposed to so much new information and new culture and just things I never would have known. And to hear it being spoken from someone and the passion that they use, I just think there's nothing like it. So that's what I love about podcasting.
What's your favorite?
Ooh, okay. There's a few things. Because I work at a comedy network, my favorite part is just working with the host and them making me laugh every single recording. I'm typically belly laughing like all the time. So that's really, really nice. The other part I like about podcasting, and this is more of a personal, but also relates to Sasha and Caroline, is that because of the podcast I worked on, and there are people who do know me outside of the podcast and who have reached out to me. I've had probably the most touching moments for me was I had like 2 teenage girls who were like, I heard you were the engineer of this podcast. And like, I want to do that too. And I was like, I never would have thought that anyone would have reached out to me asking me questions about how to do it or how I got to where I am. And I truly just want to scream like it was pure luck. But like, no, it's not just luck. It's a lot of hard work. So my two are just laughing every day and creating this great content that reaches so many people and who truly touch people. We've had so many people write in and are like, I had like a listener had a mom pass away, and the only way that they could get through it was like listening to some of the podcasts I work on, and then to have these people reach out to me, it's like this might be coming off selfish, but it's like it's so touching to me, and I don't think these people realize it. So that's my favorite part about podcasting.
Still my answer, so whatever, Jordan. Nikita, what's your favorite part of podcasting?
You so lovingly, I'm going to use it, call me like the podcast therapist. And there's some truth to it because I like to get to the heart of the matter. So my favorite really is that launch phase or that getting real moment when you just are not happy with your podcast or you're just starting and you're just lost. And so I come from a philosophy that podcasting isn't just something you do, it is a part of who you are. So I want it to feel like this comfy robe that you're just putting on. It's not to take off. It's not, which is why probably I haven't released an episode in almost a year for my podcast because it's like, oh, it's 8:00 at night. I'm supposed to, episode's supposed to be due tomorrow. Let me sit down and get it done. It feels good for me. And so really work with folks to talk about what feels good for you, what can you create that can happen with ease. You're not adding more to your plate. What do you really want? And oftentimes we don't, especially as women of color, don't get that space to do that. And so being able to facilitate that in the launch phase of like, what's your real why? It's not to get sponsorship. It's not to talk about how to become an entrepreneur. It's to maybe provide a space for women of color to be who they're truly meant to be. Like I want to get down to that gut level. And folks, that's not talked about enough. It's talked about, but not enough. So when folks work with me, they're like, oh, okay, I want sponsorship. So I'm like, well, what does sponsorship mean to you? What does monetization mean to you? What does success mean to you? Like, and so I get deep. I'm not even going to apologize for it. So that's the part. Because then when they launch or when they have this new podcast or relaunch their podcast, they're in a much better place. They're seeing it as an extension of them. They are truly inspired and just feel good about what they're putting out there. And because of that, then it creates space for more people to hear them, for more people to hear themselves in them, and therefore hopefully have more people in the world of podcasting as a whole. So that's me. Yeah.
I love it. My favorite part is collaboration and connection. Collaboration and connection is like my love language. If I connect with you, I will give you my entire soul. And I love when my clients have those comments, as Jordan had already said, like in those reviews that said, I needed this. Or I'll look at our reviews and Chatting Over Chowder, and it'll be like, one person wrote, this is the first podcast that I've ever listened to, and it made my entire day. And I was like, really? Because what do you have for your idea of your podcast? Like the whole purpose of Chatting Over Chowder was for Cheryline and I to speak with women in the podcasting industry and talk about what podcasts they're listening to. But like Jordan had said, it was also to show the listeners, if you are a woman, especially if you're a woman of color, these are women who do what you maybe want to do in podcasting. This is how they did it. And you can follow them and see their example and get into that. However you want to get into the industry, you can do that. And it's so wild that it's resonating with people and that our clients' podcasts resonate with people on a molecular level, on a soul level. And that's my absolutely favorite thing. Like bringing people who never, and I think that comes from me being so despondent in the corporate world and me having that connection with a podcast, that is like my ultimate gift and why I podcast and why I work in the podcasting industry. Because I know that there's somebody out there that was like me. It was like, this got me through the day. So hugs, feel, mush. What's your least favorite part about podcasting? Sasha hit it because you made the best face.
Oh, my least favorite. Oh, gosh, I'm feeling so many like good feelings about it. It's hard to like think about it. I mean, do you mean like as a service provider, as a podcaster? Because I feel like there's two different things here.
However you want to answer that question.
Okay. I think that there's so much more work involved in podcasting than people realize, right? And so I think that burnout can happen fast. Yeah, see, it's like, that's it, right? It's like, it's a lot harder than it seems. That's why we have businesses that fully support people. And as those business owners, that's hard for us too, because I know for me, like for one show at the very least, there's likely around 10 hours of work every week, right? So, as a full-time employee of somewhere, you're working 40 to 50 hours a week, whatever. It's like, that's only 5 shows that could take up my entire week if I didn't have anyone helping. And so I just think that's, it's not necessarily my least favorite. It's just that I think, it is just harder than it appears. And, that's why having professionals or community, some that have professionals in their community, is so important and so vital to it, because you really do need support to stick with it. Like Nikita was saying, I haven't released either for my personal podcast in probably a year because I got burnt out on providing my services and then attempting to do my own show without any support. I'm kind of being a little hypocritical and trying to do it all myself and knowing I really should get support for that show. So anyway, just the sheer amount of work that goes into it sometimes can be overwhelming if I'm having a particularly hard week. So that's my least favorite, is when it's not fun.
Nikita, what is your least favorite?
These unrealistic standards that folks think that they have to meet, like in all of the communities, if folks are new, and there's nothing bad about them, it's just what they think. How many, like, I only have this many number of downloads. How can I increase my downloads? Or how do I get sponsorships? And there's space for that. There's space for that. And also, that's not all that there is to it. If you are releasing content, someone has talked about, I love the analogy, if you're in like, this is my shoffice, my she-shed office. If I had 50 listeners, 50 people in this 12 by 6 space is packed. That is amazing. Think about how much impact that can have. But there's so much emphasis, because podcast has gotten so mainstream, on how big can you get. And it's really hard to get big and keep you. Usually that's the first thing to go. And so that is the thing I spend most of my time on. That is the thing that I can make my whole business out of. And that, fortunately, that's where I shine. But it's just all these standards that people think they have to make to be good enough, to actually be a real podcaster. I'm not a podcaster until I get a sponsorship. I'm not good enough until I have 1,000 downloads per episode. And it's like, no, you released. Bam, you're a podcaster. Congrats. Let's keep going. So yeah, before I get too passionate, that is what I say, is those standards.
What is your least favorite?
I want to say, Nikita, I like that you have a she shed office. That is my dream world. Living in LA, I don't have that much space. I can't afford it.
My gift to myself yeah.
So I agree with Nikita and Sasha of how I don't think a lot of people realize how much hard work it is. And I have definitely come across people who come to me wanting to do a podcast and thinking that it's going to take an hour out of my time. And it's like, oh, that's really funny. That's so funny. And then try to pay me in like candy. So that's even funnier. But it truly, I think at the baseline, it is very tedious work. It's I personally work on 4 shows and then have outside shows outside of that, and it's a lot of work. You're committing 10 probably like 20 plus hours to these shows every week, making sure that they're out on time and other things. But my number one pet peeve of things that I don't like about podcasters. I truly believe that you could be anyone and have a podcast, but someone who does audio, if your audio is not up to par, I have a problem with it. I love you. I love your courage. I love everything. I'm so happy you got something out, but please give it to me to make it sound better. Give it to me. But then I'll turn around and be like, I don't have time for this. I don't have enough hours. But yeah, so I'm just an audio snob and I just want everyone to sound great. So that's my only pet peeve. I want you to have good sounding audio. That's all. And yeah.
Jordan also even was singing. I don't think you could ever hear someone sound really off tune. She's like,
wait a second, we're gonna fix this. Yeah. I just want everyone to sound good. I want everyone to be the best.
Line, what is your least favorite?
Everything you guys said, but just technology failing you when you really don't need it to at that moment. You're like, you're already overworked and you're like, just work for me. Just don't do this to me right now. Yeah. That would definitely be, I think, on top of everything you guys said, that's for me. When technology just fails you and you're like, no, not now. Why?
I think for me, mine would be unwillingness to listen to other people who, I don't like the term expert, because I feel like no matter if you've been in this industry for 5 years or for 5 months, if you're working in this industry, you have knowledge. But if you are retaining people to assist you in your services and you are micromanaging them, that is showing that you don't trust their vision for your podcast, or you don't trust them to assist you. And that can be exhausting. And I feel like that has to do with insecurity on the host part and kind of releasing control. And that is a hard thing because, as everybody has mentioned, there's so many different moving parts to podcasting. And if there is the constant back and forth, it halts the process. So even if you're getting audio and the graphics ready and everything prepared 2 weeks before that episode is going to drop, then it becomes 1 week before that audio drops. And then it becomes 2 days before that audio drops. And that is Sasha's cracking up because that is extremely stressful. To people who want to make sure that your stuff is in there at least 48 hours before it drops, and everything is set and everything's scheduled and everything is copacetic. So I really implore you that if you are going to retain somebody to assist you in your podcasting needs, trust them. Trust that they have your best interest in heart, and trust that they know what they're talking about. Because that trust is going to alleviate mental space for you. And you can go work on marketing your podcast or some other aspect to make your podcast better. And if your podcasting team is providing feedback to you, it's not because we're trying to be nasty. We want you to succeed. We love when our clients succeed because not only does it give us bragging rights, like, hey, look at our client, they're doing just bomb stuff, but you're going to continue to pay us. So that's kind of my least favorite part is people coming for advice, not even like retaining, but people coming for advice and then be like, nah, I don't think so. So, I mean, I cannot believe it. We're only 5 minutes away until our session wraps up. This has been the quickest 55 minutes, like known to man. So I do want to give everybody an opportunity to say, again, their name, their company, where they can be found. And I am going to turn it over to Cheryline first.
So again, my name is Cheryline Galva. You can find me at crackersandsoup.com. We're at Cheryline at crackersandsoup.com. Or I managed to get my Instagram handle in the beginning at Cheryline. Pretty proud of that one. And again, I'm a graphic designer, digital marketer for Crackers and Soup.
Keto, where can the peoples find you?
I am the newly named podcast therapist, and you can find me. I'm really gonna, because that resonates with me. So we'll talk about that at our next accountability thing. But anyways, you can find me with Journey Girl Magic Productions, and that's girl with a U. And that is where I am completely. So that's information about editing, and information about launch, information about my therapy sessions and whatnot. So that is journeygirlmagicproductions.com. Instagram is at Journey Girl Magic Productions. Again, the U for the girl.
Jordan, where can you be found?
I can be found on Earth. You can find me on Instagram at Jordan K. Duffy. Again, I work for Earwolf, Stitcher, SiriusXM. If you want to know the shows I personally work on Best Friends with Nicole Byer and Sashir Zameda, Spanish Aki Presents with a slew of people. I don't know if you want me to go through all their names. Query with Karen Esposito, and The Deep Dive with June Diane Raphael and Jessica St. Clair. And I think that's all I can think of. That's all I got.
Where can you be found?
I can be found Sasha Huff. It's just my first and last name. And then my website is also sashahuff.com. And it's got all the different things that you can, how we can work together, what my community is, et cetera, et cetera. So all in one little hub for you. So thank you again.
And my name is Bethany Hawkins. I am CEO and founder of Crackers and Soup. I can also be found, like Cheryline, at crackersandsoup.com. We are also on Instagram at @crackersandsoup, because when I created my Instagram handle, I did not have Cheryline, and I was a hot mess. We also have a Facebook page, bcrackersandsoup.com, and LinkedIn, Crackers and Soup. We also, Cheryline and I also have a podcast, again, called Chatting Over Chowder. That can be found on Instagram at Chatting Over Chowder, and it can also be found on our website, crackersandsoup.com, under podcasts, Chatting Over Chowder. And literally, these beautiful women have all been interviewed. So I suggest that you scroll through, find their pictures, listen to their episodes, because the gems that they drop was just phenomenal. And I am forever in awe of you and your talents and your wisdom and your abilities to always be willing to come and to talk about podcasting and sisterhood and community. So thank you so much, ladies. Thank you so much for everyone who came and watched this live, and who is going to be watching it in the future. And I just adore all of you. Anu, thank you so much for believing in us and for allowing us to just take over your panel for the last session and for the last hour of State of Women. So have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Virtual hug for all of you.
Virtual hug, squishes, all the squishes. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.